A group of men set their sights on their newest target, a quiet, unassuming black inmate whose steady gaze and solitary demeanor mark him as prey. To them, he's just another victim. A man stripped of his freedom and his dignity, too broken by the system to fight back. But appearances can be deceiving. The man they plan to break is no ordinary inmate. Once the most feared Delta Force commander in the military, he led covert missions into enemy territory that others wouldn't dare attempt. His hands carry the weight of countless kills, each one a calculated decision made in the name of duty. Framed for a crime he didn't commit, he is now a pawn in a larger game, and the gang has been hired to ensure he doesn't survive long enough to uncover the truth. Their first mistake was assuming he's an easy target. Their second was forcing him to respond. As the gang escalates their threats, the fragile balance of the prison begins to shift, setting the stage for a confrontation that will ripple far beyond its walls. This isn't just a fight for survival. It's a reckoning that will expose the corruption running through the veins of the system and remind everyone that even in the darkest places, there are men who refuse to be broken. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe. The clang of the cell door reverberated through the block, a sharp reminder of the reality Leon "Shadow" Carter now faced. Inside the dimly lit space, he stood motionless, his imposing frame nearly filling the small room. His eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned his surroundings, the walls stained with years of neglect, the lingering scent of sweat and despair in the air. It was a far cry from the precision and discipline of his Delta Force days. He took a deep breath, his mind pulling him back to the mission that had defined his career. In the deserts of Afghanistan, they'd called him the Shadow. A man who moved unseen, struck with precision, and left no trace. His comrades had trusted him with their lives. Now, here he was, betrayed by a country he had sworn to protect, framed for a crime he didn't commit. Leon sat on the edge of the metal cot, the thin mattress creaking beneath his weight. His fingers grazed the cold steel of the bed frame as he thought of his family. His mother's proud smile when he returned home in uniform, the folded flag from his father's military funeral, still tucked away in a box he'd never had the heart to open. Those memories were his anchor, but the weight of the current moment pressed heavily on him. Through the small, reinforced window on the cell door, he could see the other inmates moving through the block. Tattoos marked alliances. Body language revealed intent. The lines between predator and prey were clearly drawn, and Leon knew where he stood. A target. Whispers had already reached him. The Iron Fangs, the self-proclaimed rulers of the yard, had taken an interest. He didn't know why yet, but he knew it wasn't good. Their stares during meal breaks, the subtle gestures in his direction, all spoke of violence simmering just beneath the surface. Leon clenched his fists, his knuckles white. "I've faced worse," he muttered to himself, the words barely audible. But even as he reassured himself, the question gnawed at him. How long could he last here before his enemies struck? The door's observation panel slid open, and a guard's indifferent face appeared. "Visitor," the guard said. Leon rose, his mind already shifting gears. It had to be Jessica. Maybe she had answers. Maybe she had hope. Or maybe this visit would only deepen the mystery surrounding the betrayal that had brought him here. Leon sat in the visitation room, his broad shoulders slightly hunched, as he stared at the glass separating him from Jessica Green. She was a lifeline, the one person on the outside fighting to clear his name. But as her sharp eyes studied him, he knew she could see the cracks. He wasn't the unshakable Delta Force commander she might have imagined. Not here. Not now. Jessica leaned forward, her voice low but urgent. "Leon, I've been pulling every string I can find. The case against you is full of holes, but it's going to take time to expose them. Until then, you have to stay safe." Leon's jaw tightened, his hand resting against the cool steel table. "Safe? You don't know what it's like in here, Jessica. Every corner I turn, every breath I take, I feel it. This isn't like a battlefield where you know who the enemy is. Here, they're everywhere." Jessica frowned, her pen frozen over the notepad in her lap. "The Iron Fangs? They're watching me," Leon admitted, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Sizing me up. It's only a matter of time before they make their move." His gaze faltered for a moment, his composure slipping. "I've seen what they do to men in here, Jessica, and I don't know if I'm ready for it." Her expression softened, the usual sharp edge of her determination giving way to genuine concern. "Leon, you've faced worse than these thugs. You've led missions that no one else would even dream of taking. You're one of the strongest men I've ever met. Out there I had a team, I had control." His voice wavered slightly, and he clenched his fists. "In here, I'm alone. I've seen men break in this place. Strong men. I can't let that happen to me." Jessica's hand hovered over the glass, an unspoken gesture of support. "You won't break. I know you won't. But you have to promise me something. If they come for you, you fight. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you afraid." Leon's eyes met hers, the fear giving way to a flicker of resolve. "I'm trying, Jessica, but this place, it's a different kind of war. There's no honor here, no rules." Jessica nodded slowly. "I know it's not fair. I know this isn't where you're supposed to be, but you have to hold on. The truth is out there, and I'll find it. You didn't sabotage that pipeline, Leon, and we're going to prove it." He exhaled sharply, the weight of her words both comforting and suffocating. "They framed me for a reason. Someone powerful wanted me out of the picture, and they're not going to stop. The Iron Fangs? They're just the start." Jessica leaned back, her gaze steely. "I'm already digging. The evidence they used against you, it doesn't add up. I've found discrepancies in the witness statements, missing files. And the warden?" She paused, her voice dropping. "He's not clean. There's money moving through his accounts that shouldn't be there." Leon raised an eyebrow. "You think the warden's involved?" "I'm not sure yet, but someone in this prison is keeping an eye on you. And not just the gang," Jessica replied. "If I can find the connection, I can blow this wide open. But you need to give me time." The door behind Leon creaked open, and the guard stepped inside. "Time's up," the guard said gruffly. Jessica's voice softened. "Leon, listen to me. You're not alone in this. I'm with you every step of the way. Stay strong. Fight back if you have to, but don't lose yourself in here." He stood slowly, towering over the table as he prepared to leave. Before turning, he met her gaze one last time. "Just promise me you'll find out who did this. I need to know why they chose me, why they wanted me gone." Jessica gave him a firm nod. "I will. I won't stop until I get answers. And Leon, you've got more strength than anyone in this place. Don't let them forget that." As Leon walked back toward his cell, her words echoed in his mind. Strength, fight, survive. But even as he tried to hold on to those ideas, the truth gnawed at him. This place was wearing him down, piece by piece, and the Iron Fangs were circling, waiting for the moment he'd slip. The mess hall was alive with the chaotic noise of clattering trays, muffled conversations, and occasional bursts of laughter that didn't reach Leon. He sat alone at one of the worn metal tables, his back instinctively to the wall, his sharp eyes scanning the room. It wasn't paranoia. It was survival. The Iron Fangs were there, scattered across several tables, their presence dominating the room like a pack of wolves staking their claim. Their tattoos, a mix of snarling beasts and crude symbols, marked them as predators. Leon knew better than to underestimate them. Their leader, Blaze Hensley, sat at the center, leaning back in his chair, a smug grin plastered across his face as he scanned the room. Leon focused on the tray in front of him. Overcooked pasta, something resembling bread, and watery beans. He ate slowly, forcing each bite down as his instincts screamed at him to stay alert. Every movement, every sound was catalogued in his mind. "Hey, Carter!" The sharp voice cut through the din, and the room seemed to quiet slightly. Leon didn't look up immediately. He knew better than to give them the satisfaction. But when the voice came again, closer this time, he raised his head. Blaze was standing a few feet away, his gang flanking him like hyenas circling prey. "What's the matter, soldier boy?" Food not up to your standards? Blaze sneered, loud enough for others to hear. Leon met his gaze, his expression calm but unyielding. Just trying to get through my meal in peace. Blaze laughed, a sound that was more threatening than humorous. Peace? You think there's peace in here? He leaned forward, resting his hands on the table as his gang closed in behind him. You're in the jungle now, Carter. And in the jungle, the weak get eaten alive. Leon didn't flinch, but his hand subtly tightened on the edge of the tray. If that's supposed to scare me, you're going to have to try harder. The room seemed to hold its breath, the tension thick enough to choke on. Blaze's smirk faltered for a split second, before returning, sharper this time. He straightened, motioning to one of his men, a wiry guy with a crooked nose who stepped forward. You hear that, boys? Carter thinks he's tough. Let's see how tough he is. Crooked Nose reached out, snatching the bread off Leon's tray and taking a dramatic bite. Ain't bad, huh? The gang laughed, the sound echoing through the hall like a taunt. Leon's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. He kept his gaze locked on Blaze. Blaze tilted his head, his voice dropping to something more venomous. You know what I see when I look at you? A man who doesn't belong here. A man who thinks he's better than the rest of us. He spat the words out, his tone dripping with disdain. But you're not better, Carter. You're just another piece of trash they tossed in here to rot. The words hit harder than Leon expected, stirring the lingering doubts and fears he'd been trying to suppress. For a moment, he felt the room closing in, the eyes of everyone watching, waiting for him to break. You've got it wrong, Leon said finally, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. I'm not here to rot, and I'm not afraid of you. Blaze's smirk widened, but there was something darker in his eyes now. Something dangerous. Oh, you will be. Give it time. The gang laughed again, their voices grating like nails on a chalkboard. Blaze took a step back, his gaze never leaving Leon. Enjoy your meal, soldier boy, while you can. They moved away, their laughter and jeers lingering in the air. Leon exhaled slowly, his grip on the tray loosening. He could feel the eyes of the other inmates on him, some curious, others pitying, a few amused, but he didn't care about their opinions. He cared about survival. He forced himself to finish his meal, each bite a deliberate act of defiance. He wouldn't let them see fear, even if he felt it creeping up his spine. As he left the mess hall, he could feel their eyes following him, their laughter echoing in his ears. Blaze's words repeated in his mind, each one like a poison he couldn't shake. Give it time. Leon knew time wasn't on his side. The Iron Fangs weren't just testing him anymore. They were making their move. And in this jungle, he'd have to rely on every ounce of his training to survive. The fluorescent lights in the prison hallways flickered as Leon made his way back to his cell, the mess hall's lingering tension still heavy in the air. He walked with purpose, keeping his head forward and his stride steady. But his senses were tuned to every sound behind him. Footsteps echoed faintly, barely audible above the din of the prison. He knew they were coming. As he reached the cell block, the air seemed heavier, colder. The usual noise of inmates shouting or laughing from their cells was muted, replaced by a quiet anticipation. Leon's eyes swept the area, cataloging faces peering through bars, eyes watching him with a mix of curiosity and unease. They knew something. He didn't. The ambush came fast. A sharp sound, a muffled thud of boots on the concrete floor, was his only warning before a wiry figure lunged at him from the shadows. Leon pivoted instinctively, deflecting the attack with a forearm. The impact jarred his arm, but his training took over, every movement precise and efficient. The first assailant, a lanky man with tattoos snaking up his neck, staggered back, but two more rushed in. One went low, aiming to tackle Leon, while the other swung a sharpened toothbrush aimed at his side. Leon twisted, the makeshift weapon grazing his ribs but failing to connect. With a brutal elbow, he knocked the second man off balance, sending him crashing into the wall. The third assailant managed to grab him from behind, locking thick arms around his chest. But Leon shifted his weight, slamming the man backward into the nearest cell bars. The clang echoed through the block, a sharp metallic scream that drew more attention from the onlookers. "Come on, soldier boy," a voice snarled. Blaze stepped into view, his smirk replaced with a cruel grin. "Let's see if all that military training can save you now." The gang swarmed him. Leon's fists flew, every strike calculated, every movement designed to conserve energy. A solid punch to one attacker's jaw sent him sprawling, but another came at him with a shiv, slicing dangerously close to Leon's arm. The blade nicked him, drawing a thin line of blood. Leon didn't flinch. Pain was nothing new. "You think you're untouchable?" Blaze taunted, standing back while his men did the dirty work. "You're nothing in here. Just another dog waiting to be put down." Leon didn't answer. Words wouldn't matter to men like this. Instead, he grabbed a chair left outside one of the cells and swung it with force, scattering the men like bowling pins. The sound of the impact reverberated, silencing the block. For a moment, it seemed over. The attackers lay groaning on the floor, their bravado shattered. But Blaze stepped forward, slow and deliberate, cracking his knuckles. "You think that's it?" Blaze sneered. "This ain't over, Carter. Not by a long shot." Before Leon could respond, the sharp whistle of a guard's baton cut through the air. "Break it up!" A guard stormed into the scene, his baton raised as he glared at the group. Leon didn't miss the brief glance the guard exchanged with Blaze. A flicker of something unspoken. "You!" the guard barked at Leon, pointing the baton at him. "Back to your cell. Now!" Leon wiped the blood from his arm with the back of his hand, his breathing heavy but controlled. He didn't argue. Turning his back on Blaze, he started toward his cell, but he could feel the gang leader's eyes boring into him, his smirk a promise of more to come. As he reached the threshold of his cell, Blaze's voice echoed behind him. "We're just getting started, soldier boy. Sleep with one eye open." Leon stepped inside, the cold steel door slamming shut behind him. His hands braced against the wall, the adrenaline beginning to ebb. He glanced at the thin cut on his arm, then at the pale reflection of himself in the small mirror above the sink. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar, vulnerability. This wasn't the battlefield he was trained for. Out there, he had his team, his weapons, a mission. In here, he had nothing but his instincts and the ghosts of what he used to be. And men like Blaze weren't going to stop until he was broken or dead. Leon took a deep breath, pushing the fear aside. He couldn't afford to let it consume him. Not here, not now. In the distance, he could still hear Blaze's laughter, faint but haunting. The fight was over, but the war had just begun. The dim glow of the corridor lights seeped through the narrow slot in Leon's cell door, casting faint, distorted shadows on the cold, cracked walls. He lay on the thin mattress, his body still tense from the earlier fight. The cut on his arm throbbed faintly, but the pain wasn't what kept him awake. It was the voices. The Iron Fangs were loud tonight, their taunts carrying through the silence like a cruel lullaby. "Better keep one eye open, soldier boy," one sneered from down the hall. The voice was sharp, grating, designed to crawl under his skin. Another voice chimed in, dripping with malice. "Don't matter how tough you are, Carter. You bleed just like the rest of us." Laughter echoed, bouncing off the walls in waves. They were relentless, testing him even now, when the bars separated them. Leon turned onto his side, staring at the wall, his muscles coiled tight. Their words weren't just noise. They were a promise. He'd seen men in here crumble under less. Every taunt was a reminder that he wasn't invincible. His mind drifted back to the attack. The speed of it. The raw violence. The way Blaze had hung back, letting his men take the first swing while he watched like a predator toying with its prey. They hadn't even been trying to kill him. Not yet. It was a test. A warning. The real storm was still coming. Leon's breath came slow and steady, but his chest felt heavy. This wasn't the battlefield he knew. There were no clear objectives, no comrades to cover his six. In the military, he'd been the shadow, a name whispered with respect, even fear. But here, he was just another target. Another voice pierced the quiet. "How's it feel, war hero? Being locked up with the scum you thought you were better than?" Leon's jaw tightened. The words stung more than he cared to admit. He closed his eyes, forcing his breathing to steady. But even in the silence of his mind, the voices followed. His own thoughts betrayed him, whispering fears he tried to bury. What if Jessica couldn't clear his name? What if he didn't survive long enough to get out? What if the Iron Fangs made good on their threats? No. He couldn't think like that. He wouldn't. Leon sat up abruptly, the mattress creaking beneath him. His hands ran over his face, rough with stubble, before dropping to his lap. His heart beat heavily in his chest, but his mind clung to a single thread. He had to stay strong. Getting out of this prison wasn't just about survival. It was about justice. The people who framed him thought they could bury him here, silence him forever. They didn't realize they'd put him in a place where his instincts, his training, would keep him alive. Leaning back against the wall, Leon let his eyes roam over the small, cramped cell. He studied every detail: the scuffs on the floor, the peeling paint, the faint graffiti carved into the metal bed frame. This was his battleground now. His gaze landed on the narrow window high above the cell, its dirty glass offering only a sliver of the night sky. The faintest glimmer of stars peeked through, a cruel reminder of the world outside, a world he needed to return to. He thought of his mother's face, the way her hands trembled when she hugged him before the trial, the tears she tried to hide when the guilty verdict was read. He thought of Jessica, her sharp determination, her promise to uncover the truth. They were counting on him to survive, to hold on long enough for justice to find him. Another voice from the cells broke the stillness. "Carter." "Time's running out," Leon exhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the bed frame until his knuckles turned white. Fear coiled in his stomach, but he didn't let it show. He couldn't afford to. The men taunting him, the ones circling like sharks, they wanted to see him break. Not tonight. Not ever. He forced himself to lie back down, his head resting on the thin pillow. The voices continued, a relentless tide of hatred and malice, but he let them fade into the background. His focus turned inward, his thoughts sharpening like the edge of a blade. The Iron Fangs wanted him afraid. They wanted him broken before they struck again. But Leon wouldn't give them that satisfaction. As his breathing steadied and his eyes drifted closed, he made a silent vow. He would survive this place. He would outlast the threats, the violence, the fear. And when the time came, he would expose the truth about the Iron Fangs, about the Warden, about the people who thought they could destroy him. Leon Carter wasn't a man to be underestimated. And if the voices in the dark thought otherwise, they would learn soon enough. The next morning, Leon sat in the visitation room, his broad shoulders slumped slightly, as the tension of the last few nights weighed heavily on him. The pale fluorescent lights above cast a harsh glow, reflecting off the scratched plexiglass that separated him from Jessica Green. Her sharp, determined eyes locked onto his, but the look in his own was harder to read, strained, distant, shadowed by fear he wouldn't admit aloud. Jessica adjusted her glasses and leaned closer to the small metal speaker built into the table. "Leon," she began, her voice steady but brimming with urgency, "I've got some good news." His eyebrows lifted slightly, but the guarded expression on his face didn't shift. "Good news?" he echoed, his voice low and rough, tinged with exhaustion. She nodded. "I've found a way to fast-track your appeal. The discrepancies in the evidence, the missing files, it's too much for the judge to ignore. If all goes well, I think I can get you out of here in a week." For a moment, her words hung in the air like a lifeline tossed to a drowning man. Leon wanted to reach for it, to let hope take root, but as quickly as the feeling came, it was smothered by the cold, relentless reality of where he was. A week, he said quietly, almost to himself. He leaned back in his chair, his hand rubbing at the back of his neck. Jessica, I don't know if I can make it another week in this place. Her expression faltered, the resolve in her eyes softening. Leon, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You've survived things most people can't even imagine. You can make it. He shook his head, his voice trembling slightly as he spoke. This isn't the battlefield, Jessica. Out there, I had my team, my weapons, a mission. In here, he paused, his hand gesturing to the walls around them. In here, it's just me. And every second, every minute, I'm waiting for the next hit to come. They're not going to stop until they break me. Jessica's lips pressed into a thin line,